Hey, what's happening, everybody? My name is Dev. I've been a serious guitarist for 3.5 decades. And this is a series I like to call It's Just My Opinion, but you're wrong if you disagree. And of course, today is going to be about Angine de Poitrine. I don't think you can do guitar YouTube stuff without addressing them right now. And that's kind of its own thing. We're going to talk about that in a bit. And before I get started, I want to say that, I'm really happy for them. And yes, I'm in my robe and it's late night and stuff. And that's because something happened today at practice that I want to discuss with all of y'all. But before we get to that, I just want to say I want them to have success. I want every artist who's trying to be honest and do something different to have success. Go get your bag, get your music into as many ears as you can, have your moment, hold on to that moment as long as you can. That's awesome. I want that to happen for them. I want that to be clear. That said, the first time I heard the EXP performance, I turned it off after a couple minutes. Just didn't really kind of reach me. And there's a couple reasons for that. And I'll talk about it maybe a little bit. Maybe I won't talk about it too much in depth. But like, there's a maximalist approach to the music, and I think a lot of that comes from the fact that it's a duo and they're using a lot of looping, and that the layering, it just kind of gets a little bit too much for me at some point in time. I prefer things that are a little bit, something more like talk or even polyphia, and I think that Angine de Poitrine checks a lot of the same boxes as why people are interested in them as polyphia does. Also a very maximalist approach, but polyphia obviously is a much, twice as many people in that band. And what they also do is, they don't do all the looping, so they've got a lot more possibilities in terms of what they can do with their song structures, right? I think that the looping does a couple things. First of all, it provides some constraints, and I do believe that constraints breed creativity for Angine de Poitrine. So they are getting creative with that, which I think is really cool. I was watching some live footage of them the other day. The first song was in 7/8, and the way that the layering was happening was really kind of taking the maximum advantage of the looping. However, it was all very frenetic energy. So it's not exactly my speed, and so that's part of how I felt about it. And I'll just say that, like, a few days, maybe a week or so after the initial KEXP video dropped, one of my best friends sent it to me and was like, "Hey, have you seen this?" And my response was, "Yeah, it gave me a headache." And I was being a little playful with it, but like, the reality is, like, my initial impression was something like, okay, this is, I'm hearing microtonal, kind of like Turkish scale stuff happening with like Buckethead, Primus feel on top of like a more modern polyphia approach, as if it was done by, characters in a Nintendo 64 game, right? And that's, I love that they've got a very defined aesthetic. I always get kind of worried when I see a band who has such a defined aesthetic that, like, people will tire of it very, very quickly. And I personally did very quickly. That's just me. But again, I want them to have success. I think that what they're doing is really interesting and it's really good. And I'm going to get a lot of hate for this too, but it's kind of in the similar way that I feel about Dream Theater, where, like, I really respect him. I believe that John Petrucci is one of the best of us as guitarists. I love him as a person from what I've seen of him. I love him as a player when he's not particularly playing with them, but I don't find myself ever really listening to him, and I know I'm going to get all kinds of hate for that. I want to tell a real quick Dream Theater story. Maybe I won't say the name of this musician, but in my hometown of Erie, Pennsylvania, way back when I was in my 20s, I stopped by a drummer friend of mine's house. He jumped up off the couch and he, like, turned the TV off. I was like, "Oh, it's you." That's what he said when I came in the room, and I was like, "What are you doing, man? What are you watching?" He was like, "Oh, I'm watching this Dream Theater video." Like, he was worried about someone coming in and judging him for watching a Dream Theater video, which I thought was hilarious, but also kind of made sense. Similarly, when I was in grad school, I was going through a Dave Weckl phase. And I was even going to art school. My MFA is in 3D animation and special effects. And one day I was listening to whatever his, like, 2004 CD was, or 2003. And he had his, if I remember correctly, like, his kids were singing, or his daughter was singing backup. So it was very high pitched, young girl, like, singing these parts on top. And there was like a flute, it was Weckl. It was like really pushing it, right? And I pull into the parking lot, and as I pull in, I like turn it down. You know what I mean? And it was like I kind of get a similar vibe from Angine de Poitrine, except they've managed to really latch onto the popular zeitgeist in a really, really quick way, in a way that I thought that like maybe I'm going to see Bloody Wood this weekend. I was really hoping that, and they're doing really well, but I was hoping that they would like explode, and they're they're growing exponentially or really kind of linearly, which is great for them. But I also really felt like maybe House of Protection would have really an explosive moment, and they are again they're growing, but I don't see them having the same type of immediate massive success, which actually kind of worries me for AP. But today at practice, for those of you who are longtime viewers of the channel, I'm playing two bands. One's an original band, one's a covers band. And today we had practice for the covers band, and we were talking about them, and my bassist had a really good point. He said, I don't think anyone's really talking about this, but like part of why I think that they're hitting is because it doesn't sound like music that AI could write. That was a really, really good like insight. Was I think that's got a big part of it. Like, there's no question that these are humans that are making this music, and that's something onto which people can really latch, which is really interesting because of all of the looping. Like it should sound robotic, and even their presentation, it should sound and feel kind of robotic, but it doesn't. And I think that that's pretty cool. I think this is part of why King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard are continuing. Whoops. I just knocked over my empty Coke bottle. Continuing to have such like great success is like no one is gonna potentially be like, oh, did AI write this when they're listening to some Gizzard stuff. A couple other bands that I think are worth listening to. Again, I think I brought up Talk earlier, TAUK. If you like instrumental stuff, absolutely check them out. They're incredible live. In fact, on my old YouTube channel, you can find show from way back in 2018 when I snuck a GoPro into one of their shows. It's incredible. But also, Pliny is a guitarist that I really enjoy, although in a similar way to Polyphia, I would like to hear Pliny like improvise more, I think that's one. Obviously, I live here in the Twin Cities. Corey Wong is one of our best ambassadors right now. And seeing Corey Wong live is a superhuman, not superhuman as in like it's more than humans can do. It is a very human event and a very human feel. Absolutely worth checking him and his band out at any point in time if you can see them live. But yeah, I think part of what Angine de Poitrine, like what they're able to do right now is kind of a full reaction to the other things that, it's clearly not Timbaland's AI artist, right? When you hear this stuff. And I think the like the microtonal approach to music is something that someone else who I can't believe I didn't bring up earlier it represents really well. Not necessarily all the time with his compositions, but you can see him do this a lot in interviews, which is Jacob Collier. And I know a lot of people hate Jacob Collier. I'm not one of those people. I love Jacob Collier personally, but yeah, he kind of pushes the boundaries a little bit. And this goes back to something that I used to say a long time ago. And this is an opinion that I know a lot of people will find incorrect, but again, it's just my opinion, but you're wrong if you disagree. And it's that dubstep was actually pretty interesting. Like we have, if you look at the history of music, we've got these like 12 celestial tones, and we've got this pentatonic scale, rhythms, your common time, your shuffle, your waltzes and stuff like that. And one of the things that dubstep did specifically was like, well, all the music was to a grid because it was, computer based. Like the concept of there being, the 12 tones that you would stick to, like they were moving in and out of those in ways that were a little bit less traditional. And I thought that was really interesting. In specific, I saw Bass Nectar in 2010 when I was living in Vermont, and really I was like, wow, that was a lot more interesting than I thought it was. Square Pusher was another one. I'm not sure if I would classify Square. I don't know what I would classify Square Pusher as because those shows were really wild. I wouldn't say necessarily dubstep because he was also a fantastic bass player and stuff when I was seeing him live, but was doing some really interesting stuff with like just the sonics too that are totally worth checking out. So yeah, Angine de Poitrine, if you dig them, good for you. I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yum, just absolutely not for me. I just didn't really kind of care for it. I did give it, like I said, I listened to some live footage today, and it just doesn't really speak to me. Basically, if I have more time to listen to music, I'll be much more likely to put on, like I said, talk or something like Julian Lage or something like that if I was going to get into it. But yep, that's it. It's just my opinion. You're wrong if you disagree. I'll see you around.